episode 17 of the Neon Cast. How are y'all doing? I was going to discuss two topics this week. One of them being the fantastic PlayStation 4 game Horizon Zero Dawn, which I've been playing a lot of, which you probably know if you follow the channel, because I've been posting lots of streams of it. Upwards of 20 hours at this point of the 25 or so that I've played. And, I have a bunch to say about it, but I'm still early on in the game. And since I feel like I have enough to say about The Last Jedi and resulting hoopla, I could probably push this to a later episode where maybe I've gotten a little further in the game or maybe even finished it. But yeah, the brief of it is I really, really like Horizon Zero Dawn. Open world action RPG. That's just great. But as I said, this episode is going to revolve exclusively around Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, which came out yesterday, or the day before yesterday, Thursday. Now, I've seen the movie twice, but before we even get there, something has to be said about the sort of bizarre, spastic reaction that it's had. Because on the one hand, it's getting really good reviews and doing really well financially, but then other avenues seem to present a much grimmer image. Stuff like its Rotten Tomatoes audience score. And also Twitter, if you use Twitter to gauge interest of that sort. And there it's getting a pretty sound thrashing for many reasons and by many different kinds of people. And it's going to be a little hard to get through all of this. I don't really have any lists, or I haven't really prepped for this, but there are a lot of different things that I want to say. And I think the first one, we should start with Rogue One, which I had watched recently for only the second time. I had not rewatched Rogue One since I saw it when it first came out. And at the time, I liked it. I remember the post-movie discussion that I had with my friends, because we went to eat after seeing Rogue One. And the general consensus was like, yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I mean, this thing was kind of weird, and I could have done without that, and maybe this should have been better. But yeah, that was fun or whatever. But then I had no real urge to go watch it again. Not even in theaters, let alone, I mean, it was out for a long time. I didn't buy it on Blu-ray. Like The Force Awakens, I saw twice in the theaters when it came out, and also bought it immediately when it came out and watched it and rewatched it multiple times. In fact, last Sunday I rewatched it for the purposes of like before seeing The Last Jedi, and ended up for some reason or other watching it twice in one night and being perfectly fine with it. And I watched Rogue One, like I said, only second time, and was kind of bored. And a lot of the things that I liked had a diminished effect the second time around, meaning that I think that overall, if I had to describe Rogue One now, I would say that it's an entertaining movie, but not a good movie. Meaning, if you haven't seen it before, sitting down and watching it, especially on a big screen, is big and fun and nice, and it's exciting. And so a lot of the problems of it are kind of masked by that excitement. That's true for every movie, by the way. You walk out of the theater, you're often there's this kind of afterglow, or whatever you want to call it, that makes some of the movie's issues seem not as bad. And so, yeah, the second time around, I just didn't really enjoy Rogue One, I gotta say. It had some nice parts and action and some visuals and stuff, but just overall, I was just not engaged in it. But here's the thing. There is a non-negligible percentage of Star Wars fans who love Rogue One still now, more than The Force Awakens. This is what they want, and I just want to throw this out there because I'm going to be criticizing a lot of different kinds of Star Wars fans now. So I just want to get this out of the way. Every opinion is valid. You're allowed to like whatever you want, and you're allowed to dislike whatever you want for whatever fucking reason you want. It can be legitimate or non-legitimate. It doesn't matter. Your taste is not beholden to anyone. The only thing that I have issue with on some fronts is how that taste is expressed, meaning how you relay your tastes to other people. And that's where I think some people can do better and be better. But not, as I said, I don't think that arguing over whether or not somebody should enjoy a certain movie or not is has a point to it. There's just, like I said, you like what you like often on a gut level. And sometimes you can't even explain why something, didn't work for you when it worked for other people or vice versa. And so let none of this be seen as me criticizing the notion of liking or not liking something. As I said, it's mostly about how you convey that like or dislike to other people in the realm of social media, in the realm of interpersonal communication, because the way that you discuss your opinions with other people, I think are important, in terms of like civility and trying to make the internet less of a garbage place to talk about anything. Because I said that Star Wars is one of the topics that I'm most afraid to tweet about, more than any politics, even controversial ones. I know that if I start tweeting about Star Wars, I'm going to get annoyed because I'm going to get a lot of replies from people who have very different opinions than I do, and also will express them in ways that I'm not going to like. And I try to avoid it, but I know that I have a confrontational streak or whatever, and sometimes I will intentionally go out and tweet something that I know will get me replies that will annoy me. And so, but that's my cross to bear. You know what I mean? So there are two Star Wars fan bases now. There is the Rogue One kind of fan base, and there is the Legacy movies kind of fan base. And yes, there's a lot of crossover. There's people who don't like either. There's people who like both. But I do see a distinct split in the fandom, and I think it also relates to what those different kinds of people were yearning for during the drought of Star Wars, during the years that there was no new Star Wars and all we had was the prequels, which nobody likes, or most people don't like. And what about them, like what you thirsted for? What was the thing you starved for as a Star Wars fans? And for some people, it was a new story arc and interesting characters and like using that template to make new stories and new adventures or whatever. And other people just thought that it didn't deliver on what they wanted in the Star Warsy fashion. And so Rogue One pressed a lot of buttons for people like that. People who felt like, it could have been nicer if it was a little grittier, if there was if it was more war oriented. And I remember, like, when I heard that's what Rogue One was going to be, I was like, great, awesome. Like, I feel like the Star Wars universe is big enough so that you can do lots of stuff in it. I mean, look, even Marvel is now doing this. Like, even Marvel can have a movie like Captain America: The Winter Soldier and a movie like Thor: Ragnarok exist effectively in the same universe. And those are very tonally jarring if you put them one next to the other. And so you could do that with Star Wars too, right? You can have a movie that highlights the grit of war and the moral ambiguity of some aspects of it. Anyway, there are two fan bases. And I think that influences a lot of people's reactions. So I think a lot of people are going to hate movies that aren't catered to, that don't cater to the same target audience as Rogue One does, which instantly gets a lot of people angry at a movie like The Last Jedi, which is far more in line with The Force Awakens, and in some ways goes even further into that fun space adventure and don't really take it too seriously territory. But you know what? I mean, if you look at the original trilogy, if it came out now, some aspects of it would have been treated incredibly poorly by the internet. Stuff like the way Yoda speaks, or the fact that Yoda in general is like a silly little puppet when he's supposed to be this big Jedi master, or the Ewoks and the entire idea of the Ewoks, which some people don't like to this day, certainly. And a lot of things like that you look at now and are silly, but have already sort of found a place in like our cultural lexicon. And so Yoda's speech pattern, which is dumb and stupid, is now a thing. It's like a classic cultural thing that we all recognize, right? And so I think The Last Jedi goes into that territory, into the territory of doing things that maybe seem really strange and bizarre. And I think that's off-putting to a lot of different kinds of people. So you know what? I think we can start. So, okay, so it's Rotten Tomatoes audience score. Immediately, people started sharing that around Twitter on Thursday night when it had been playing for there were like 2 screenings in the US, and the audience score was like at 56%, even though it has like a 93 critic thing. And people were immediately saying, oh boy, and look at this, and comparing it to like the Rotten Tomatoes audience score of like The Phantom Menace, which is at 58, and saying this has more than this. And now, look, I can spend an hour now breaking down why doing that is stupid, but I'll just briefly say this, that Rotten Tomatoes audience score is just something that you can just vote on yourself, and I feel like there's been a concerted attempt to downvote this for lulz or whatever, just for the fun of it, because it, like I said, it has a high Rotten Tomatoes critic score, it has a high Metacritic score, it has an A cinema score, which is a far more like robust system that Hollywood markets and stuff like rely on, and they like it, it's almost like exit polls. Like they'll interview people who come out of the theater and gauge their like and dislike of it, and it has a high IMDb score, which is also user submitted. Like Rotten Tomatoes audience score here is like an outlier. It's a really low outlier. And it also like contrasts with stuff like the fact that the Justice League has a high Rotten Tomatoes audience score, even though, I mean, look, we can discuss the merits again of the Justice League movie, which I reviewed and did not like, but the truth of the matter is it did really poorly at the box office, and meaning a lot of people who like these characters in this franchise just didn't go see it. Okay, and so I understand that some people love Justice League and love Zack Snyder and love the DCEU. There aren't enough of you. Okay. And I'm sorry. I like movies that flop too. Blade Runner is my favorite movie of the year, and it failed at the box office. I don't feel somehow like the need to go blame or make excuses for that. It's a long, slow-paced, artsy movie that's a 30 years later sequel to a movie that barely anybody liked when it came out anyway. It's a niche market, okay? Justice League is not a niche market movie. A Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman movie should do gangbusters, and it didn't. And so I get that you might like it, and so those people go on Rotten Tomatoes and give it high Rotten Tomatoes audience scores because there's also this whole meme that DC is pushing about, like, oh, it's the fans versus the critics or whatever. But that's, again, yet another indication of why Rotten Tomatoes audience score is a poor representation of anything. Especially if you're looking at something like Phantom Menace, which came out before like Rotten Tomatoes was really a thing. So its audience score is influenced by people who now go to vote on whether like they like Phantom Menace, and how many people actually really do that? Like, do you go, if you're a Rotten Tomatoes guy, do you just go over every movie you've watched in your entire life and give it an audience score if it's like years and years old? Like, that score doesn't really mean anything. So yeah, anyway, like I just feel like too many people want to it's almost like people feel like if they like something that other people are making fun of, then they are somehow in a disadvantaged position. And so there is this really strong desire among certain groups of people to never be caught out liking something that the cool kids don't like. Okay? And so people are sharing out of context animated GIFs from this movie that look silly and, in a way are silly, but then saying like, oh, where's, I told you we would be missing Lucas and all kinds of crap like that. It's like, seriously. I mean, really. I get that it's fun to hate things on the internet, but you're being obnoxious and dumb. Like you would much rather it be awful and make fun of. And, maybe that is fun. Maybe that is fun to find something that's, abysmally terrible and tear it to shreds. But sometimes something isn't that. And even if you dislike it a lot, this is nowhere near in the realm of Justice League in terms of like fucking up the characters and doing things that make zero sense. Like everything in this movie at least continues the plot in a coherent fashion, develops all of the characters in an understandable way, and sets an interesting stage for the third movie. Whether or not you like how they accomplished these tasks, it's really hard to argue that they didn't accomplish them. I mean, really, it would be very difficult to refute the three very general points that I just made about this movie. And so, yes, it comes down to whether or not you like what they did with it. And here comes yet another element that I'm going to criticize. And again, I got to say again, this is entirely your right to do this. I'm not telling you how to behave. I'm just telling you that because you do this, your reaction sometimes seems obnoxious and off-putting to other people. And what I'm talking about here is the people who engage in like over-the-top amounts of speculation about what's going to happen in these movies. Okay, now again, that's your right, and lots of people do that, and it's fun sometimes, and I do it too. But some people take it far to the point that anything that then doesn't match the sort of brilliant potential plot that they have in their head then becomes a bone of contention, and then those kind of stack on top of each other until all you're left with is resentment that the movie's nothing like what you thought it was going to be and therefore bad. And so, again, after I saw The Force Awakens, I spent a good couple of months thinking about what might happen, theorizing about what might happen, but I didn't turn it into a thing, and I didn't sit down before this movie came out and said, here's the plot as I think it's going to be and what it should be. I'm letting these movies take me where they want, okay? And yeah, that doesn't mean I'm going to like wherever they go. And you know what? When I watched this movie the first time, a lot of things about it didn't work for me. A lot of things felt very weird and tonally off. And I got to say, I saw it the second time around, and those gripes were mitigated. I mean, some of the stuff is still a little weird, but none of it felt as jarring as it did the first time around, because obviously I wasn't as surprised that it was coming. But, other things, yes, like not everything was not jarring the second time around. Some things I still don't understand why they did why he did it the way he did. And some jokes in some moments were maybe a little too silly or maybe a little too self-aware. But again, I also realize that I'm starting to be not the target demographic for this. I mean, all of us, by us, I mean adults, like people who watched the original Star Wars movies as kids and still love that franchise. I think we need to collectively realize that, this isn't for us. There's one sequence in this movie that I thought we could have easily done without, but while I was watching it, I thought to myself, kids are going to love this part. It's fun. It's big and fun, and it's a big thing. And if I were 13 and watching this, I would definitely think this was a good part. And so, me who's 35 can live with that. I can live with that. Where they do something that's maybe slightly Harry Potter-ish in its nature. And feels a little less Star Warsy, but also in a way kind of otherworldly and fantastical. And so, yeah, again, I feel like a lot of anger that I'm seeing on Twitter relates to unmet expectations, and maybe disappointment with the crashing reality that, the thing that you want Star Wars to be, it's not going to be that thing. And I said this also on Twitter. I said that I think it's time for us to resign ourselves to the fact that the only really good serious film to come out of this franchise is Empire Strikes Back, and that's just never going to change. They're never going to make another film like that. And if you read about how Empire came about, you'll also see that it almost happened by accident too. Another movie I can think of that's like that is Jaws. Jaws wasn't supposed to be a great classic film. It was supposed to be like a summer scare fest about a shark, but there was like this lightning in a bottle where they got amazing actors like Robert Shaw and the shark didn't work, so they had to work around their broken shark prop and the result was way more scary and interesting, and John Williams and his amazing music on that movie. Something came together to turn something that could have easily been just a B movie into something great, and the same thing is true for Empire Strikes Back. And so you have the talent that came together and what they tried to do, and the fact that they were allowed to do it at that time is just this singularly unique thing. And Blade Runner in a way is a little bit like that. I mean, Blade Runner 2049, and the fact that somehow they managed to get $250 million to make a fucking Blade Runner sequel that I don't think anybody thought would make a lot of money. And yet they were able to realize this amazing vision because they had this great they had this big budget and this great talent too that came together on it, like Denis Villeneuve and the people that he had cast and stuff. And so like I think everybody's waiting for the next Empire to happen, and when you hear something like Rian Johnson's going to direct it, you're like, okay, he's a good film, he's a serious filmmaker, so maybe it is going to be something like that. And maybe that's why a lot of people like Rogue One too, because they think something that's more gritty and more sort of down to earth is more of what Star Wars should be like. But I'm very much willing to set that expectation aside and just expect these to be really fun space movies, and hope that directors like Johnson, what they bring in is like a creative flair to do Star Warsy things, and I think he does that. There's a couple of really great visuals in this and scenes, and how the scenes are composed that could have been done way more boring if it wasn't a director that had this kind of artistic talent. The thing I'm kind of concerned about is how J.J. Abrams, who's now going to make Episode 9, is going to pick up all these weird threads that Johnson left for him and what he's going to do with them. I can tell you for sure people are going to hate it, obviously, because people now hate everything. And I said when I saw it that I understand why people won't like it, but still something about the tone and some of the reasons that people cite for not liking it are just a little baffling to me. Or not baffling is the wrong word. I understand why somebody would be upset that this isn't like the Star Wars movie they think Star Wars movies should be. I get that. I just wish that people would make more of an effort to enjoy things than to not enjoy them. I just find that to be a waste of time. I don't gain anything from looking for reasons to not like something. I'm a gut reaction person. When I walk out of a movie, deep down, I usually know if I liked it or not. And you know what? When I walked out of Last Jedi for the first time, I was a little confused. I was like, I think the good things in this were really good, but it was very weird, and he did a lot of weird stuff that I didn't think really worked, and I actually I had to contemplate it for a good day or two. And it did take a second viewing for me to say, okay, you know what? The things that I disliked the first time around, it's not that I magically like them now, but a lot of them were just like, yeah, all right. This scene where they go to this planet and they do this one thing for like 20 minutes, I could take or leave the scene. If I'm watching it with friends, I could get up and go to the bathroom during that part. But I still like where they took the story. I like where they took the characters, and I think that the main people in it all did a really good job. And so, it's been like 25 minutes that I've been talking, and I think we can finally actually get into a little bit of a review, and then I'm going to do a little bit of spoilers. But, I think if you've listened this far, you probably understand what I think about it because I've kind of gotten into it. And so I'll just say this in broad strokes. I think The Last Jedi is a really interesting movie because it does not feel made by committee. It feels like they took a director and said, tell us what you want to do with this. And he did. And they looked at his ideas and said, wow, some of this is really out there. But you know what? You seem on top of this, so just go for it. Knock yourself out. And, apparently what he gave them was something they were happy with because they want him to make a new trilogy already. And, he also didn't require any reshoots, I think, and he finished like under budget, all kinds of stuff like that, which, that's logistics. But the fact that they didn't need any reshoots also signals to me that, they had a very composed vision. And they were like, here's what we want to go in. And they did that, and they accomplished what they set out to do. And it wasn't like some studio executive came in later and said like, oh my God, we got to rework this. We got to reshoot these scenes. We got to change this tone, that tone. Like, I think a project like that, it signals something good about the artistic cohesion that exists and the synergy between like the management of Lucas and Johnson himself and, everybody who's involved in writing and stuff like that. And so, he delivered this movie that does a lot of things that are strange and out there and unexpected. I did not expect half the things that happened in this movie. I did not think would happen in this movie. Some I thought would happen in the third movie. Some I thought wouldn't happen at all. And some visuals and some creative and artistic choices are strange and maybe don't work great. It's very long. It's very long. It's 2.5 hours long. It feels long. There's a point at which you will think to yourself, there was a whole thing I saw in the trailers that we haven't gotten to yet, and this feels like the end of the movie already. But again, I don't mind. I like long movies. I like slow pacing. Although, again, there's a segment in the middle of this movie where it kind of drags a little. And you're kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. But the things it does well, it does really well. I thought Daisy Ridley was great. I thought Adam Driver was terrific. I thought Andy Serkis as Snoke was fucking great. Mark Hamill just crushes this. And I know he didn't like where they took his character, but the reason for that is that they took his character in an unexpected way. But one that I thought worked really well. I thought he acted his ass off, was fucking fantastic in it, really. There's some really good Star Wars-y dialogue involving some classic characters and some new characters. The story leaves us in a really interesting point where you're like, wow, what's going to happen now? I don't know. It shied away from doing a lot of things that would have been a little more boring, and did one thing that I really like, and I've already praised a movie recently for doing something similar. I'm going to get into that in spoilers, which I'm going to get into just in a minute, because just this, I think the spoiler section of this is just going to be, a brief list of things that I mentioned. I have a list, as I always do, one that's just open in front of my face right now, and I'm just going to browse it quickly and just mention the things. But yeah, like I said, overall, I enjoyed it. I think it's going to be the kind of movie that I go back and rewatch. It's because it's fun. It has a lot of side characters that are interesting. Like even throwaway characters in it are interesting and are given interesting things to do. There's some really good Star Warsing going on, in all of its forms. There's space battles and there's planet battles and there's lightsabers and there's fighting. There's the Star Wars-y stuff that you expect from Star Wars, and I think all of it is done really well, and some of it is done in ways that all of us really wanted and never got from the prequels. And so I think that at this point, I'm going to take a 3-second breather, and I'm going to go into spoilers. Check the description below to see if there's a time code for spoilers. And I never know going into this whether or not I'm going to finish my spoilers and then keep talking about other stuff that like occurred to me during spoilers, or maybe mention something or other else that that occurred to me like as I'm closing it out. But yeah, so I don't know, go see the movie or don't. Probably half the world's going to see it anyway. It's on track to have a monster opening weekend, behind The Force Awakens, but you're never going to beat that, the coefficient it had of being the first new Star Wars movie in a long time. And And so, you can't really expect it to get that extra boost, but it's doing like 50% better than Rogue One. So, clearly people are invested in these characters, want to know what happened to them. And I know a lot of reviewers will say like, hey, write me in the comments what you think about this movie, but I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. As I said, I don't like talking about Star Wars on the internet anymore. It's not that I don't care what your opinions are. But you know what? How about this? I'll rephrase that. I would love to know what you thought about this movie, as long as you're able to convey it in ways that are civil and interesting, and not just like this was fucking awful. Because I've discussed movies that I really didn't like here before, like Suicide Squad, like Batman v Superman, like Justice League, and I do not do that. I'll in moments of anger. It's not that I'm totally innocent of ever saying this movie fucking sucked or that thing fucking sucked. I do that a lot, sure. But I'm saying, like, if I'm going to discuss a movie with someone, if I'm going to discuss Justice League with somebody who likes Justice League, I'm not going to just say it's fucking awful and everything's terrible and it's lame and it's because then it puts the other person on like a weird defensive, and then you're not really discussing the movie anymore. You're arguing about the movie. Because now he feels the need to like defend it because you're attacking it, rather than like saying, I didn't like this or I did like that. And it's just not fun. It takes the fun out of it. Come on, people. I watch a lot of bad movies. I'm a fan of watching intentionally bad movies and like ripping them to shreds. That's not what this is. This is like, hey, let's talk about a movie that maybe some of us liked and maybe some of us didn't like. So maybe we should express our likes and dislikes in a way that doesn't put the other person immediately on some form of defensive. Okay, and so like 3-second breather, and then we're going to talk about spoilers. Okay, so let me pull up my little list, and I will say this. As I've said before, every time I kind of gear up to talk about spoilers, I don't know where to start. Okay, so let me start with this. I said that this movie has a lot of Star Warsing of all varieties and in really good ways. And I think I can get into that a little bit deeper. And by that, I mean, it has really good space stuff, really good even though, they throw all kinds of physics and logic to the wind in these movies, and maybe here in particular, even more than others. But, the whole dreadnought scene with the bombing raids and then what they're going to do and this tactics and then the ultimate move, which is to use the cruiser to cut through Snoke's ship at light speed, which is just a gorgeous visual. And that whole space stuff was great. The battle on Crate was really cool and had really cool visuals. The whole idea of like where it's white and there's like red, it's all puffing up this red stuff because there's these like red crystals under it. And like the skimmers cutting these like paths in the salt and like crisscrossing in and out of each other, trying to destroy the cannon. I like that they had walkers there, but the walkers, it didn't end up being like a battle with walkers. It was just like, okay, we're gonna advance on the thing, and it didn't turn into a Hoth thing like, oh, we got to take down the walkers. It wasn't that. It was just a nice ground battle, Star Wars style ground battle. There was also a good chase where they chased the Millennium Falcon, and they even played the little trench run musical cue. That was really cool. And it had great lightsabering. I loved Snoke in this. And I love the entire throne room sequence with Snoke and Rey and Kylo Ren, and the confrontation, the dialogue, and then the big battle, which was just what the prequels did was very jumping, flipping, cutting down robots like it was nothing. This was like just the two of them fighting those like Praetorian guards, but it was like a brawl. It was like, and yes, it's somebody fighting three people, but he's not doing it in a way that feels like they're just totally not at risk and can just do anything. It was a hard fought battle with enemies that knew what they were doing. And so that was great. That was really great. And so, yeah, like it had all of those elements. As I said, it had some weird elements. Like I thought the whole scene on the casino planet was kind of weird and out of place, and maybe we could have done without. It was a little silly. I did think those animals that looked like the monster from Last Guardian were kind of neat. And like I said, during that sequence, I thought to myself, if I were a kid, I would be really enjoying this right now. It's like a fun, exciting, like respite, kind of like what the Rathtar scene was in The Force Awakens. It was this kind of silly thing that happened to some of our characters. Yay, okay, they got the thing. Now they're going back to the thing. You know, I can live with or without that scene. But it does have a couple of small purposes. You know, the Rose and Finn storyline. I know people don't understand the point of Rose in this movie. Whatever. Just leave that aside for a second. Let's just say she's a new character. She's going to be like a love interest. I also think that her purpose is to get Finn to care more about the rebellion. He doesn't. He still doesn't. He just cared about Rey. The reason he did what he did, go to find the hacker and go to do this and that it was because of Rey. It wasn't because of the rebellion. Rose was there because of the rebellion. That was her purpose. And I think that by them growing close together and her having the backstory, I also like that the space battle in the beginning with the bomber squad served as like a backstory to Rose's character, because it showed what happened to her sister, which was also done really nicely in visual storytelling with their matching pendants, instead of her saying, "Oh, it was my sister and we have matching pendants." She didn't say that. All you got to do is show it like that. That was, that's what happens when you have a good filmmaker. That's a moment of good filmmaking, for instance, and good writing too. And so yeah, I think that in the third movie, like Rose's purpose is going to be, she's going to bring Finn around to caring about the rebellion, because I do think a theme of the third movie is going to be, how do we get people to care about the rebellion, right? Because the second movie ends with like this grim note of like, nobody wants to help. It's just us on the Millennium Falcon, just like a handful of people. And so I do think that a big part of that is going to be how to get people to care again. And I think Rose is going to be the one to get Finn to care again. And then maybe Poe Dameron's going to get together with Carrie Fisher's daughter, what's her name, who like helped him mutiny. Let's see what else that I thought. The Porgs. It's funny because the Porgs were a lot less obnoxious. I thought Porgs were going to be obnoxious. They didn't really play a part in the story. They didn't do a thing they weren't like a Deus Ex Machina Porgs. They were just cute and kind of there, which I think was perfectly fine. That's a really good way to introduce something that you want to sell lots of toys for. Just do something cute, throw it in like 3-4 scenes, have it like a little bit in the background. It doesn't need to be front center. It doesn't need to be a Jar Jar Binks. Not everything has to be a BB-8. Like BB-8 remained the main sort of comic reliefy kind of character running around with the characters. Porgs aren't the new BB-8. Let's see. Oh, I really like the reference to Kurosawa's Rashomon in showing this confrontation between Luke and Kylo Ren at the Jedi Temple like 3 different times, and it was kind of different each time. And, it kind of harkens back to the fact that Kurosawa is a big influence on Star Wars in general because of the Hidden Fortress. And so I like that. I like that a lot. As I said, I love the whole Snoke scene. I don't mind that, Snoke was just some guy and now he's dead. I don't mind that at all. I don't think we needed, again, this is where people's major speculations get in the way of them enjoying this movie, because there was all this thought, who's Snoke? Is he Plagueis? Is he this? Is he that? Did we need Snoke to be someone other than some alien who had use of the Force and was evil and maybe was involved somehow or other with the Empire? We don't know what other things the Emperor had going on and in other parts of the galaxy's gigantic. You know what I mean? I did not mind at all that Snoke was just some evil guy and that now he's dead, and that now Kylo Ren's going to be our main villain. I really still like Domhnall Gleeson and Hux. He's so great. I love how he says, "Supreme Leader Snoke." He's just so great, and I love what a snake he is, and he's kind of now, he's like, now all of a sudden, like Kylo Ren is that long live the new Supreme Leader. And so just his character is just so great, and he's so angry, and I know he's going to be trying to undermine Kylo Ren in the next movie. It is kind of interesting to see these two like youngish guys like flying by the seat of their pants now, controlling the First Order. And yeah, they might be doing things that are way more cavalier and dangerous and scary than they did under Snoke, because Snoke was very evil, but he also seemed like way put together, more like, the kind of like quiet, controlled evil, not this like raging fire, emotional roller coaster kind of person. So yeah, I love that Snoke scene. Like I said, Andy Serkis was just phenomenal. I also thought it was really well done. The CGI looked great. Like there wasn't really uncanny valley going on. There really looked like a real thing. Yeah, I love that. Let's see what else. I like that Luke was like a weird recluse. I also liked the Yoda scene. I thought that it was great that they used a really bad puppet for Yoda. Something with the Force ghost effect made it look like weird CGI in a couple of places. But that, again, I really didn't mind. And I thought that the scene with Yoda was great. I thought that the dialogue they gave Yoda was really good. It was really Star Wars-y. That scene with him and Luke was really nice. I like that they're doing new things with the Force. I thought that the effect of Leia floating through space like Superman was a little weird, and maybe they could have done it cooler, like maybe with like a force field or something. But yeah, I was perfectly fine with her using the Force like that. I was perfectly fine with the finale where Luke somehow manifested a version of himself on Crate, including the little dice thing that he gave to Leia that then when Kylo Ren picks up, they kind of disappear. I like that he did that. And also, on top of that, I like that he, in the end, bested Kylo by outsmarting him. It wasn't about beating him in a lightsaber fight. It was about, like, getting him to get mad and focused on Luke, letting the other people get away. I in the past have praised this about the finale of Doctor Strange, spoilers for Doctor Strange, where he beats Dormammu by outwitting him, not by firing a big magical laser beam at him. And the same thing happened here. Like in this movie, Kylo Ren, effectively was defeated because his emotions were manipulated into making a stupid mistake and letting everybody get away. So that was really nice. I don't know. Again, the music was really good. I liked a lot of the little designs of things. Back to Luke being a weird recluse. The gif people are sharing is him like milking that little weird creature and drinking the milk, the green milk from the udder. I thought that was really clever. Like people think that's really weird. I thought it was nice. It was because Luke is almost like Yoda in Empire in this movie. He's like weird. He's like a weirdo. He's been alone for 30 years. He's turned into a weirdo. And that's why he kind of he throws the lightsaber away and he acts weird. Because he's kind of broken. He's closed himself off from the Force. He's closed himself off from the world. He's like racked with guilt and all these feelings of because he effectively tried to murder Kylo Ren. He feels responsible for the First Order. It is his nephew. It's Leia's son. It's Han's son. And so I like that they turned him into this weirdo. And I know that he didn't love that because he wasn't like, oh, here comes Jedi Master Luke Skywalker to save the day. He even said, what do you think I'm going to wave my laser sword against the entire First Order? I thought that was really great. That was also a nod, I think, to George Lucas calling it a laser sword at one point. Like behind the scenes or whatever. But yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And as I said, Hamill crushed it. And I loved that in the flashbacks he had the Luke Skywalker hair. They gave him like the classic Luke Skywalker do. That was really cool. And yeah, I think that's about it. As I said, if I dissected this movie scene by scene, I could come up with lots of stuff where I'm like, fine. I don't know why they did this. I don't know why they let Leia live. I don't know why Laura Dern was the one who died and Leia was the one who lived. I also don't know how the fuck they're going to reconcile this with Episode 9. My theory is that the opening crawl of Episode 9 is going to explain that she was assassinated, and then maybe the first scene is going to be her funeral, because otherwise what are you going to do? I thought that... I don't know. Again, here and there, some moments were a little too silly. Some moments did not require jokes. Some dialogue was a little too our world. Like they used the term Godspeed, which is a little too much us, I feel like. There were a couple of those where I was like, maybe they should have said something else in this. So, but again, overall, like I said, it was big and weird, and I love that it was weird. I don't want something middle of the road. I don't want just like, here's more stormtroopers, here's more walkers, here's more X-Wings. Having a weird chase of like these alien horses through a casino planet because you're trying to get a hacker so that you can disable the hyperspace tracking. That's weird. And then like I said, like Rey is trying to train with Luke and she has these weird like communications with Kylo Ren, and it was just strange, but that's, I really want that. I really want that. As I said earlier in this episode, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi would have been scrutinized to death if they had come out today, because a lot of the stuff in them is just weird and bizarre, but survived the test of time and became a special thing due to its weirdness, like Jabba the Hutt, all of that, a lot of, or the Sarlacc pit, like a lot of stuff in Star Wars is just bizarre and unique. And again, not everything works. Not everybody thinks that the Ewoks were a good idea. I think it's, first of all, I have a love for those movies because I watched them as a kid and loved them. So it's a little hard for me to look at them, in a sort of cold analytical fashion. But I would say that I think it's interestingly symbolic that in the end the Ewok, like an out of place planet that's like pre-industrial, can have an effect on the motion of the Empire. It reminds me of that scene in The Fifth Element where Zorg is talking to the priest, and he gets the little cherry stuck in his throat, and then he gives him Ian Holm gives him the whole speech about like all of your empire and where's the robot to pat you on your back, like one little cherry, all of your power and your soldiers and your money and stuff, you get a cherry stuck in your throat and there's nobody around to pat you on your back, you're gonna die. That's going to kill you. And so in that same sense, I feel like the Empire was so hubristic that some out of nowhere forest moon with these like tribal little creatures on it were in the right place at the right time to punch you in the liver and bring down the entire Empire. I thought that was kind of clever, but I also understand where people are like, this is stupid. It's little kiddie shit. I get that. I really do. And so in that sense, I don't think that having weird kiddie shit in this movie invalidates it in any way. I think that's, and like I said, I recognize that Star Wars is for kids. And the fact that I can enjoy it at all, I think is a blessing. Because other franchises, I can't enjoy Transformers. God knows I can't enjoy fucking Transformers. And so being able to enjoy Star Wars, even though I don't feel like it's catering to my specific tastes, and I would have maybe liked something, if I had my say, if I had carte blanche, if I had $1 billion and I got to decide what Lucas would do with Star Wars, would I do these exact things? No. I would do something that appeals more to me as a more serious sci-fi fan. I would try more to recapture the magic of making films that are so good that, even little kids can watch them and be excited by them or whatever. But that, it's not my money that we're gambling with. It's Disney's money that they're gambling with. And like I said, the fact that they make something that I enjoy at all is impressive. And clearly, the people that it really is marketed towards are liking it a lot. And I as I said, the internet hatred it's just discouraging, not because people don't like it. Once again, I'm gonna circle back around to one of the first points I made here. This isn't about you liking or not liking the movie. It's about you acting like it's the worst thing ever and it's garbage and it's bullshit, and you're making people who like it feel like you're patronizing them, you're discounting their tastes. There are ways to say that you hated a movie that don't involve acting, like a dick. And I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I don't want to start fights with anybody. I've already been maybe a little too aggressive on Twitter with some people about it, just because it just, like I said, it bothers me to see so many people just try to get a rise out of people with how they explain their dislike for this. I just think it's out of place. But yeah, so that's it for this episode of the Neon Cast. As I said, I'm gonna push my Horizon Zero Dawn talk to another episode. I'm not sure when that's gonna be. It's a little hard for me to know what is gonna be the thing I'm gonna do next. I want to go try See the Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro's movie. It's playing in limited release in my area. I might manage to go see it this week, and maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll do like Shape of Water and Horizon Zero Dawn. I also got Nier Automata. I bought it. I haven't played it yet, and people are saying that's their game of the year. So maybe after the 100 hours, I'm going to pump into Horizon, and I'm going to pump in 100 more into Nier and talk about that some. So yeah, anyway, thanks for listening, and check me out on my regular places. Neon Taster on Twitter. The Twitter account for the podcast is @NeonCast. This channel, youtube.com/c/Neon Tasters, where you can see all of these videos, podcasts, and Twitch streams, which are streamed live at twitch.tv/Neon Taster. I announce those on both of my Twitter accounts. And also, I have an email address, neoncastpod@gmail.com, where you can send me anything that's longer than a tweet, recommendations, or whatever. And yeah, so, I'll see you again soon. Check out my continuing Horizon Zero Dawn streams for more of this kind of babbling lunacy. So thanks for listening. If you have been listening, if not, then why am I talking to you?